Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining this stream, second live stream for today. As always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments that Russian media is focused on. And if you find this update informative and interesting, please like the video, leave some commentary. This might help to deal with the algorithm. And if you want to support my work, dear friends, all the links are on this video in the description box and will be in the pinned comment. And also, of course, you can use super chat feature on Rumble. I'm streaming on both channels, sir, as always, on YouTube and Rumble, and you can use that super chat feature on Rumble or become a premium subscriber if you want to. That being said, dear friends, let's go through some news without any further delay, and I will start with this reporter of some 30 minutes ago, approximately, that according to several sources, NATO, using Zelensky's terrorist regime as a cover, launched large-scale missile and drone strikes on Russian territory. And on your screen, dear friends, on the right side there, you can see map of these launches of the drones and missiles. Yet again, according to a number of sources, a relatively large-scale drone and missile strike, although at this point there is no information about work of air defense systems or if any missiles or drones already reached their targets, if there is any casualties or damage on the ground. If any update on that, of course, I will share additional information in my next update. And when it comes to terrorist activity of Kyiv regime and NATO, dear friends, we have a very important news, I think, also, which is that explosions occurred on Monday at the two oil refineries, one in Hungary and one in Romania. And what is interesting, dear friends, both oil refineries are working on Russian oil. So in Hungary, MOL refinery caught fire, processing mainly Russian oil delivered via Druzhba pipeline that was targeted by UK and UK British proxy terrorist regime of Zelensky on numerous occasions. And in southern Romania, explosion occurred at the Petrotel Lukoil refinery operated by the Russian subsidiary of the Russian company Lukoil. While posting this information, I just asked the question, has Ukrainian terrorism arrived in Europe, as I and many others predicted? And I think answer is obvious. Yes, it did. This is a pure example of Ukrainian terrorism, by the way, supported, first of all, by United Kingdom and their so-called secret services of the UK that are in reality terrorist organizations packed with their mass murderers, right? Beginning from the head of MI6, who is a granddaughter of a Ukrainian Nazi, right? And all the others, by the way. Entire so-called elites in UK should be exterminated because all of them are mass murderers and the terrorists, period. There can be no mercy towards the terrorists, right? So clearly, this is a terrorist attacks conducted on the NATO member states, Hungary and Romania, by another NATO member state, UK, while London is using Kyiv regime as its proxy to maintain some plausible deniability in its hands. Let's see if Budapest or Bucharest will make any statements about it. Investigation is underway, and probably in upcoming days we will find out what the investigators gonna say. But it is obvious, it is so freaking obvious that this is a terrorist attack conducted by London, by the way, right? While using their Ukrainian Nazi proxies. And also Dmitriev, by the way, aide of Russian president, paid attention to these terrorist attacks on Hungary and Romania. And we have his comment, Hungary under attack for working on a peace summit. Dmitriev is asking question. Putin's special envoy, Kirill Dmitriev, is questioning why Hungary's largest refinery processing Russian oil suddenly caught fire before upcoming Putin-Trump meeting. And the question is legit, I think. Timing may be random, may not be random, but behind this terrorist attack is definitely London. And when I say London, I mean globalists, of course. And when it comes to globalists, which force is a main force in the globalist movement? It's a British aristocracy, European aristocracy in general, and among them, of course, most powerful criminal group is a British aristocracy, the so-called royal family, which is a bunch of animals, actually, and that's about it, right? And there are all the financial criminal clans that were serving this British aristocracy, for example, for centuries and centuries and centuries, from Rothschilds and God knows who else, right? And when it comes to Western terrorism, when it comes to terrorist attacks of UK, we have this reporter from Russian Foreign Intelligence Service that head of Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, Sergei Narishkin, according to whom UK intelligence was behind the Nord Stream explosions. London felt impunity and is now preparing new sabotage, no terrorist attack actually, in the Baltics and the Black Seas. And when it comes to Black Sea, by the way, we all understand what is going to be target for their globalists and their globalist puppet regimes all over the Europe, London included, right? And of course, target is going to be so-called Turkish Stream pipeline. They did destroy Nord Stream pipeline. They want to destroy now South Stream pipeline that goes under the waters of the Black Sea from Russia, connecting Russia to Turkey, and then via Turkey, Russian pipeline gas goes through a number of European states. And I remind you, dear friends, that just yesterday reports began to come in that Brussels are banning any transit of the Russian gas on EU territory. So this is a big hit on the dreams of Turkey, obviously, to become a major energy hub in a region, and first of all for Europe. But this is very important statement from Narishkin, I think, and question is why London felt impunity? Why London felt impunity? Maybe because despite all the statements that Russian high-ranking officials are making time and again, nothing was done to bring to the justice everyone that was guilty in this terrorist activity, no matter their position, citizenship, and so on. Maybe this is the reason. If something happened to everybody who was involved in these terrorist attacks, either on the Nord Stream or any other terrorist attack conducted against Russian interests, against Russia, Russian civilians, and so on, then I'm quite sure globalists and globalist puppet regimes would act much more cautiously and will avoid, by any cost, becoming a target, right? But, well, they are acting with impunity. And Narishkin himself is saying this, right? Head of Foreign Intelligence Service. Quite a telling statement there. Quite telling statement that brings more questions than answers, actually. Meanwhile, dear friends, as you know, this morning I reported about successful Russian long-range precise strikes on positions of concentration of foreign mercenaries in the Kharkov region, during the which some 600 foreign mercenaries allegedly was killed, according to sources. And during the day, I was looking for some additional information about this strike. I was hoping to find out who these mercenaries were, from which countries, Latin American countries, NATO member states, or from where. But unfortunately, I did not find no follow-up stories in that. Maybe tomorrow. But information, I think, is important, and I will definitely follow this story. Whenever any update comes, I will share additional information with you. Also, interesting report about new developments in regards to Russian FAB glide bombs. All of you are familiar, of course, with this name FAB. It's names for Russian glide bombs: FAB 200, FAB 500, FAB 1500, FAB 3000, and these numbers mean kilos, by the way, how many kilos these bombs are, right? And right now on your screen, dear friends, you can see updated kit for FAB 500, for example, that allows this bomb basically to fly more than 100 kilometers. And there is also variation of the new kit, which has some sort of a motor, right? And that engine allows this glide bomb to fly beyond 200 kilometers. So quite a significant improvement in technology of Russian glide bombs, and this information has been shared now publicly here in Russia, mainly because during the past several days there was quite a number of these long-range strikes with this new weapon, new kit on old weapon, right? These bombs themselves are nothing new, right? This glide kit is constantly improving, and one of the bombs, by the way, did not explode. And Kyiv regime shared online some pictures of this new kit, and I guess after that there was no point for Russian side to keep this information sort of a secret. So pictures appear today of these bombs with a new kit. Well, impressive engineering development, I will say. Ordinary aviation bomber, thanks to this updated kit, can fly beyond 200 kilometers, and carry 500 kilometers of explosive, right? 300 to 500, potentially even more, right? So I think soon Kyiv regime's forces and the NATO mercenaries will feel heat from these long-range glide bombs on themselves, right? Far beyond their line of contact. Also, dear friends, interesting news, I think, that was reported by Kirill Fyodorov, Vaina Istoria Ruzhe channel, one of the biggest military channels out there on the Telegram. And according to this reporter, Bell helicopter producing company in the US, is in talks with the Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky about purchases of AH-1Z Viper helicopter and UH-1Y Venom helicopters. Basically, you can see on your screens how these helicopters look. One is basically some sort of a Super Cobra, maybe some updated version or something like that. Another is Huey, basically, maybe a relatively updated modification of their Huey. Reports are that some letter was signed about intentions by representatives of Zelensky's terrorist regime and their Bell company, and soon we might see these helicopters, this type of helicopters, being deployed against the Russian Federation. And of course, they're gonna find out pretty quick how effective Russian air defense systems are. Quite sure about it, right? And while on one hand Zelensky's regime is operating as if they have all the money of this world, talking to all sorts of companies about more weapons with all sorts of countries. Well, when it comes to situation on the Kyiv controlled territory, we have this report that Kyiv regime is facing serious financial problems because Kyiv only holds enough funds until the end of the first quarter of the 2026 to stay afloat. El País, a Spanish media outlet, reported, citing EU sources, and I guess if Kyiv regime only has, at this point, despite all the Western assistance, funds only for the first quarter, then I guess European taxpayers gonna pay, I don't know, man, another 100 billion, another 150 billion for the Kyiv regime, on top of all the funds that was allocated for these terrorists already, right, by the European bureaucrats to somehow prolong this proxy war. And okay, man, I mean, what can I say? Only question really I have is how long European citizens gonna tolerate this stuff, right? Are they even capable to wake up and do something about it? Because it's their money, right? This is not the money of Ursula von der Leyen or Kaja Kallas or some other officials there. This is money of the European taxpayers, right? Hard-earned money that is going to be taken in hundreds of billions, as it was the case in previous years, and used to enrich Zelensky to prolong this proxy war, which means more death, more destruction, and also to enrich Zelensky, his criminal associates, and the Western corrupt officials and the military-industrial complex on expense of ordinary European citizens. But yes, I mean, no one should be surprised, by the way, if somewhere towards spring next year, Kyiv regime will face bankruptcy. If Brussels would not be able to find these funds, by the way, for Kyiv regime, another 150 billion, maybe even more. Meanwhile, speculations continue, dear friends, about recent Trump-Zelensky talk, about Trump-Putin conversation, phone conversation, and as time goes by, especially Western media outlets are coming up with more and more contradicting reports that are contradict each other, and I'm going to give you an example of that. For Wall Street Journal, for example, reports that Trump allegedly told Zelensky that he was not interested in the fate of their territories. He said it during their conversations, recent talks with Zelensky, and at the same time you have New York Times' report, according to which Trump demanded from Zelensky to make territorial concessions. So you tell me, dear friends, this is both big names, isn't it, in the Western so-called media, New York Times and Wall Street Journal, sorry. So which one is telling the truth? I mean, it cannot be both, right? One of them is clearly lying, maybe even both, actually, because none of us were there during that conversation between Trump and Zelensky, and we simply don't know what they actually talk about. But these two media outlets clearly contradicting each other, isn't it? And which one is correct? Did Trump say that he just don't cares about territories and fight should stop on the current line of contact? Some other media also reports about this, or New York Times is correct, and Trump actually demanded from Zelensky some territorial concessions. Me personally, I don't really know which report is correct, if any, right? I don't really have a strong opinion on that. I'm just highlighting how untrustworthy Western so-called media is, right? And dear friends, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov did made quite interesting statements today. He once again pointed out that root causes of the Ukraine conflict has to be addressed. And also, Lavrov stated that this proposed ceasefire on the current line of contact would not work. Simply would not work. I have videos, dear friends, to show you some short videos, and let's see those videos. Let's listen to those videos first, and then we will go through some other news. And wow, only 38 members of community right now on YouTube. What is going on? At least we are reaching 70, 100 sometime during this evening live streams. All the big channels have live streams right now. Could be case, man. I don't know. So let me share, dear friends, these statements of Lavrov.
Conversation with Marco Rubio. Therefore, when we started hearing from Washington statements claiming that we need to urgently stop, we do not need to discuss anything and let history take a turn. Well, you see, if we stop, then we forget about the root causes of this conflict, and the US administration, since Donald Trump took office, clearly understood these root causes and clearly outlined them. I'm talking about ensuring non-bloc, neutral, non-nuclear status of Ukraine, which means abandoning any attempts to drag it into NATO. And I'm also talking about putting an end to the genocide of Russians and Russian-speaking population. That is something that the Kiev regime has been doing way before Mr. Zelensky came to power. In legal terms, they abandoned and they banned all possible and impossible rights of the national minority. Formally, it is considered to be a minority, although the majority of Ukrainians think in Russian and speak Russian, and they ban Russian in all areas of life. That is a purely Nazi regime. For quite some time, Zelensky aspired to do that. Macron, Steinmeier, Ursula von der Leyen have been doing that from some point in time. When they stopped mentioning a strategic defeat upon Russia, they started calling for an immediate ceasefire. Back in the day, Macron said that this ceasefire should be unconditional, without any preconditions. And among other things, he publicly stated that nobody would be able to restrict the weapon supplies to the Kiev regime. That means that when it all became clear, it became clear why they needed this truce. But most importantly, this would mean not only an opportunity to pump the Kiev regime full of weaponry, to incentivize its terrorist attacks, namely attacks against civil infrastructure and civilians in the Russian territory, the explosions at Nord Stream 1 and 2,
Okay, so, he made the point there, isn't it, that this ceasefire stuff is unacceptable for Russian side. No changes in Russian position in this regards, and I wonder why Trump come up with this ceasefire talks that conflict should stop on the current line of contact. I don't know what happened there, but what give him impression that Moscow will agree on that. It is anybody's guess, and of course root causes have to be addressed, and the Russian foreign minister is quite clear on that. Also, press spokesman of the Russian president, Dmitry Peskov, stated exactly that yesterday, that there is no changes in the position of a Russian president. And nevertheless, dear friends, we all know this stuff, nothing new. Just time to time, Russian officials have to reiterate them already known Russian position, repeated, because of all sorts of crazy statements that we are receiving from the West. But at this particular point, still speculations are underway about Lavrov-Rubio meeting, and also Putin-Trump meeting is being called in question this evening by U.S. journalists based on their sources. I will go through all of the news that is available for now. So this morning I reported during the first live stream that CNN reported that meeting between Lavrov and Rubio was postponed. That was allegedly scheduled for this week, but Deputy of the Foreign Minister Ryabkov responded on that and said that how one can postpone something that was not even agreed yet, right? So Ryabkov basically denied these claims of the Western media, and on top of that, after several hours, by the way, late this afternoon, number of media outlets began, including Financial Times, by the way, began reporting that Rubio and Lavrov are set to arrive in Budapest for a face-to-face meeting on October 30. Right? You see how much confusion there is, right, in regards to this talks between Moscow and Washington, let's say, and preparations for meeting between Putin and Trump. So this is Financial Times is reporting that Lavrov and Rubio might meet on 30th of October. But same time, this evening, we have this report from Garrett Hack, who is NBC's White House correspondent, who wrote basically on his Truth Social that he's planning towards that Trump-Putin summit in Budapest is on hold. At the moment, a senior White House official tells me initial call between Secretary Rubio and Foreign Minister Lavrov was productive, but POTUS believes, US president basically believes, both sides aren't ready enough to talk to justify moving forward right now. So seems like Trump is kind of, if this report yet again of NBC journalist is correct, then seems like White House is backing off kind of from this announced summit between Trump and Putin. And you know what? I have no issues with that. That would be even better because clearly, based on statements that we are hearing from Trump, from Rubio, and others, Washington is not there yet. Washington is clearly not there yet. So there is no point then for Russian president to risk it, by the way, actually risk big time and travel towards Hungary through hostile airspace, right? So if this information is correct, I'm happy with that because clearly Washington is not ready to move ahead with the withdrawal of US from this proxy war against Russia, right? And to move towards actual de-escalation with Moscow. And until this is the case, until neither Trump, neither his administration are in no position to negotiate with Russia with a good faith, then what is the point to have a meeting, really? I mean, I don't think Russian president has much interest in media op, right? Trump might be, but this is not the style of Russian president. He don't really cares about public relations that much, right? At least not on the way Trump does, right? He is putting up shows literally on daily basis. He loves to be in the spotlight, right? But nevertheless, even though reports are some contradicting reports once again, will Rubio Lavrov meeting take place? If yes, when? On 30th of October or later on? Or there will be no meeting at all? Same questions still are active about Trump-Putin meeting, and there is quite serious doubts that this Trump-Putin meeting will either not take place anytime soon, or if it will happen, definitely not in a week or 2 weeks time. That's my impression, at least, right? We will see what's going to happen. But nevertheless, Foreign Minister of Hungary, Peter Szijjártó, has arrived in Washington, according to a number of media outlets, and one of the reasons is preparations for Trump's visit to Budapest. So I don't know what is going on, really. Quite confusing developments are happening right now in regards to all these stories, and I guess we don't really have much option but to just wait and see, right? Pay some attention to all these media reports because that's what we do, right? But maintain critical attitude towards all these reports because we don't know what can be trusted, which media outlet is saying the truth, which is not. So critical take always helps in such cases. And dear friends, you remember I reported in my previous updates that Bulgaria, just in case this meeting between Trump and Putin will take place in Budapest, already stated on the level of foreign minister that Sofia will open its airspace for a plane of Russian president. But other NATO member states, you guessed which one? Poland, by the way, which is led by extreme Russophobes, stated that they will arrest Russian president if his plane will arrive or end up in a Polish airspace. We have quote here: I cannot guarantee that an independent Polish court, how laughable is that, by the way? Come on, man. Would not order the government to escort such a plane for the transfer of their suspect to Hague. I think the Russian side understands this. Therefore, if this summit takes place with the participation of the victim of aggression, I expect that the aircraft will take another route, Sikorsky said. Meanwhile, Bulgaria, as I already said, is opening its airspace if needed, right? Although, as I already said, it would be better if Russian president did not travel to Hungary. Nothing against Hungary itself, but to reach Hungary, plane of Russian president have to fly through hostile airspace, and this is just too much of a risk. It does not worth it, right? Especially when you know that you are dealing with such individuals on opposite side when it comes to Western elites in general, that none of them can be trusted, right? So any sort of provocation can be and should be expected. Let's see. But Poland is Polish leadership is acting as they always do, man. Like they are psychos, and they are. No one should expect anything else from these idiots. Also, dear friends, when it comes to other regions of this world, J.D. Vance arrived in Israel for a 2-day trip. Information was announced earlier that he will travel to Israel. We should expect some strong statements from U.S. Vice President in support of Israel and everything Israel does. And on this matter, Donald Trump once again went on his Truth Social platform to threaten Hamas with obliteration, with this and that. I'm not going to go into details, by the way. He acted tough towards Hamas already on numerous occasions. If you are interested in his post, dear friends, and have not seen yet, on my Telegram and Twitter X page, I did publish whole post of his from Truth Social. You can check it out there. What else do I have? Same time, we have this report that U.S. intelligence is closely tracking the movement of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. According to Axios, Washington believes Maduro will either be overthrown or forced to step down. And I can give you a third scenario. U.S. will conduct a decapitation strike on Venezuela and will kill Maduro and all their other individuals from the current political and military leadership of this country, or majority of them. That's what is most likely going to happen. U.S. will just kill them all with the decapitation strike, because I don't think there is a realistic probabilities or possibilities that CIA-controlled or CIA-backed the so-called opposition figures in Venezuela actually are in such a strong position that they can orchestrate regime change. I don't think so. Right? So therefore, and I don't think Maduro will step down on his own. If he will step down, let's say today, then whoever is, I don't know, second in charge, that second person will take his place, right? So most likely, U.S. will go ahead with their military option, with decapitation strike against Venezuela. And this country, this republic, by the way, may well become a trap for U.S. militaries, for the Pentagon, for decades to come, if people of Venezuela will fight, of course. Venezuela may well turn into second Vietnam for U.S. and before taking any steps, Washington should think about this first. And when it comes to Venezuela, by the way, there is already full swing push on a narrative of establishing control over Venezuela in U.S. so-called media. And Fox News, for example, is sort of leading charge. This warmonger criminal host of Fox News, Sean Hannity, who is openly, without any shame, is calling for U.S. to occupy Venezuela and turn it into 51st state. I can give you some short video on that, dear friends, and I will end this live stream on that. So where is the video? Look what he is talking about.
This weekend, and I thought you had a pretty darn good idea, and you said you were going to share it with the president. I want to know if you did, and that is this opposition leader in Venezuela that won the Nobel Prize that said it really deserved to go to Donald Trump. Sounds like a pretty good leader to me for the people of Venezuela and the end of narco-terrorism and a better relationship with the U.S. Or if they choose maybe the 51st state, I don't know.
Sounds good to me, but the opposition.
They are openly on air are talking about annexation of Venezuela, colonization basically, right? To turn into 51st state. I mean, really. So yet again, it's up to people of Venezuela if they will fight. If they will fight, U.S. not gonna be able to enslave them. But if they're not gonna fight, by the way, U.S. will have no much issue neutralizing current government there in Venezuela, establishing their proxy regime, and then literally enslaving people of Venezuela that will work for a penny for American multinational American corporations, basically, right? They call them multinational, but in reality they are anything but, right? They're owned, all these multinational corporations are owned by specific criminal clans, right? We all know that. And so, yes, if people of Venezuela don't want to become slaves of these corporations, then they will have to fight. That's how it is, because I don't think anybody in Venezuela actually believes that U.S. is coming in to help to make their life like a paradise, right? U.S. never operated that way and will never operate that way. That's fact of this life, right? And dear friends, this is it for this relatively shorter live stream. I'm gonna end it on that. Hopefully, it was informative enough. A relatively slow day, second half of it at least, but nevertheless, I did try to bring some interesting news that was available. There was no super chat, dear friends. There was no. Let me check Boosty just in case there is any questions there. So yes, nothing on Boosty, no super chat on Rumble, and I did not receive no message from Anya about some questions from PayPal. So therefore, I will end this live stream on that, dear friends. Thank you all for your attention. Have a wonderful day, and take care. See you tomorrow.